Hey everybody, this is Feng Zhu speaking here with this week's Design Cinema. And as you can see, this week we're doing something a little bit different. We're actually going to film this episode and show you guys a little bit of the traditional media as well as the drawing techniques and the equipment we use to produce the conceptual art, especially focusing on the sketchbooks and some of the pens that we use, because I think some of you guys will find that quite interesting. And you can see in front of me here is my office here where I do a lot of the recording. And these tools, for example, the anatomy tools by itself is very useful. And that's kind of subjects we'll talk about today. It's going to be a very quick, short episode, but I think it'll be quite useful for some of you. So, all right, so let's get started with some of the demonstrations. All right. Hey everybody, so we're back here in one of our classrooms here at the school. So what you see in front of me are a bunch of equipment that I used to use back in 2003 before I switched completely to digital. I used this kind of materials for over probably 7 years or so before switching to digital. It's because this is where we get all started from, all this equipment that we have here. The reason why we use everything digital now is because it's fast. The computer allows us to draw very quickly, allows us to manipulate the images and use a lot of techniques that you wouldn't have. However, I do encourage a lot of you guys to get your foundation started on a piece of paper. We do the same thing here with our students, simply because you want to get that coordination with your hand, that ability to swing your elbow, which I'll show you guys in a bit, to draw. But let's go over just some of this equipment in front of me. I haven't touched this stuff for literally 7 years now, right? 2003. So let's go over the pens. Majority of these, what you see here, are high-tech Cs. This is made by Pilot. This pen is what we call a hybrid, meaning that the tip is a ballpoint, but the ink is permanent. The typical pens you get in the States, for example, some of these pens are not hybrids. They're either ballpoint or they're felt tip. When they're ballpoint, they generally smear, meaning that if you put the Prisma markers or the Copics on it, it'll smear the ink. If it's a felt tip, the tip, which are these micron pens, these are felt tip pens here. These things are permanent, however, they're very difficult to draw on, especially if your paper is kind of grainy, because there is no body and it's literally just a little tip that the ink flows out of. So they don't flow that well on a piece of paper. However, this just is pretty good. This is the microns what I used when I first started, eventually switching over to the Pilots. So these high-tech Cs come in a bunch of sizes. There's 03, 04, 05. It's up to you on what you want to use, and I'll show you guys a little bit of how these things go on paper. The other equipments I use here are just generally ballpoint pens, permanent markers, a bunch of microns, brush pens, whatever you want to use. So for me, the equipment really doesn't matter. But if you're going to marker, you do need to use permanent materials. So let's go over some of the sketchbook stuff now. All right, cool. Okay, so let's talk about sketchbooks, because sketchbooks, every designer, every artist need to have sketchbooks. That is almost a requirement, right? Because you need to draw a lot to be in this industry. So here are some sketchbooks, and let me give you guys some advice on what kind of sketchbooks to keep, and also what do you do with these kind of things. So I have what I guess, quote unquote, the presentation sketchbooks, or these nicer sketchbooks that I got in Los Angeles. These ones are not white, as you can see, the paper, because you can see some of these drawings I did back in the year 2000 over here. The reason why I like these kind of non-white paper is because I could draw on them and then marker over them and then put white pencil on top to push out the values. And also the paper is very, very thick. The page count on these are very low, talking about maybe 50 sheets or so. But the reason why I call them presentation sketchbook is because every single drawing I try to make in these are nice. You can see here. Right? There's no bad drawings. So in a way, this is something you show clients when they want to see your sketchbook. But every page they flip through, they're like, wow, it's pretty good. A sketchbook is super professional. So in a way, it's a presentation. And then I have the design sketchbooks, which are these little baby ones I keep, because these I could take anywhere I want to go. So this one, for example, is the one I used on Star Wars when I was working on Skywalker Ranch. And for example, I'll go to coffee and just start sketching ideas. So this one, which I'll get some close-ups of, is full of design ideas. You can see it's very, very messy. Because the point of this sketchbook is not to show to the clients. Actually, George never saw these, right? This is completely for myself, just to get as many ideas as I can on paper. And I recommend a lot of you guys to do this, because I find that students, especially, when they get a sketchbook, they're nervous to draw on it, especially something nice like these, right? These are kind of nice sketchbooks. So you buy these are probably, this one's what, $20 sketchbook. So what happens is students tend to tighten up. When you start drawing, you're actually not loose in these. You draw very, very small, you draw very, very precise, and if you mess it up, a lot of people tend to rip it out of their page. And the sketchbook gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and they have like a thin little sketchbook, right? That's not what sketchbooks are supposed to be. They're supposed to be for you to express your ideas, get the mind on a piece of paper. So, my advice is to just keep two then. If you want to draw super nice ones, go to your super nice ones, and then get these kind of throwaway. This is also design stuff you see here. Very, very loose. A lot of rough ideas. I put notes in this. I put ideas in these. These are all the kind of things that a designer needs to do. And you got to free yourself from that kind of pressure. Free yourself from the stress of drawing or committing to a sketchbook. Think of these as pure throwaway things. Don't buy a sketchbook that's leather bound and super fancy and costs $1,000 or something. Get something that's cheap like this. These things are like $5 in the States, and you can see I have many of these. Because you want to use these as just paper, a piece of paper to contain your ideas. How nice they look, nobody cares, right? So that's generally my advice for getting a sketchbook. And just get a bunch. When you go to the store, just get 2, 3 of each. That way you already know you have a bunch of these in your hands. So you don't have to be all nervous, like this is the only one I got, my little Indiana Jones sketchbook thing, Because I do not know a lot of students who have these fancy, fancy sketchbooks, but you flip them open, there's like nothing inside, And generally professionals, the more professional they get, the simpler the sketchbook becomes. It's because they understand it's about the idea, what's on the paper, not the presentation of the sketchbook. So, all right, so that's a little bit about sketchbook. Let's move forward to some actually drawing on the piece of paper now, okay? What we have here is an A3 sketchpad. This is different than a sketchbook. This is actually for drawing. This is for example, you're doing client work and you want a very nice drawing. So in the States, this will not be A3. This will be something like 11 by 17 or, this is a European measurement, A3. But the idea is the same, that you get this kind of sketchbooks. In the States, I used to use a brand called BFang, I think. It's very nice. General tip about the sketchbook, you see these kind of things, they have a piece of tape here, glue. And if you just use these as is, for example, you open it like this, what happens is over time, you're going to get this glue here to peel off because we're constantly sliding these on the paper, which you will see shortly. By doing this enough, this seam will actually rip off. So a very quick tip, just make a crease right around here, like this. You made a crease here, this way you can bend the piece of paper over and now under, like so. By doing this, you took the pressure now off of this crease and put the pressure onto this very strong piece, which is not going to break. So now we could slide the paper back and forth, and you're not going to get into any kind of issue. And this will last you for the entire sketchbook. So that's just a little quick tip. Let's just rip this piece out here. All right, let's go over some very basic drawing tips for you guys, because I get a lot of questions about how do you draw straight lines. And I think I did this for the Noman DVDs before, and I'll share it with you guys here. One of the things we stress a lot is you got to draw with your elbow. The wrist is a very, very minor movement, right? This movement with your wrist. And you make a lot of mistakes sometimes drawing with the wrist because there's a lot of movement going on here. With the elbow, you actually have a very natural pivot that if I simply just drop the pen and draw, you see that it creates a very nice arc. And it's very, very even. All right, this pen is a little dry here. Let me switch to another pen here. Wow, all my pens are drying up. Since I haven't used these guys for 7 years, they're pretty dry. As you can see here, it creates a very natural arc. All right? And what we want to do is practice that. Let me go back to my high-tech C. As you can see, as I swing, the lines, if you control it, could become very, very straight. That you're making parallel lines. If the ink comes out, they are very, very straight. And you can actually get to a point where you're drawing extremely straight lines like this, freehand, right? Without the use of a ruler. And they're also very parallel. And this is, see, the elbow never moves. I mean, the wrist never moves. It's always on the elbow. So you just swing. And this takes practice. This takes a month of practice. But once you get this, the movement is exactly the same on a Wacom tablet. So, and that's how a lot of us are able to draw precise straight lines without the aid of a ruler or holding shift or any kind of tools in Photoshop. It's just completely free-handed, as you can see here. Right. And what I do is I just spin the canvas. I spin the canvas to match the angle of the lines. Right. This pen is very, very dry after it's about 7 years in hibernation. Oh, it's starting to come back to life now. The ink is now flowing out. Right, so I'll do a few more and I'll show you guys how to do some other forms. Right, so this is generally just using the elbow. Of course, when you draw life drawing and things like that, you want to be very free. And what I do is I just hold my pen. Let's go to a different paper here. Right. Say you're drawing a creature or something. I like to hold my pen very loosely and have the pinky be in control of your drawing. So if I'm drawing a little creature and things like this, right, very gestural drawings, and have to tap your little pinky down to sort of control those lines. So this way, even though this is a permanent pen, the movement is still extremely gestural. Right? So you go from drawing something that's very, very angular, very mechanical, to something that's very, very organic by just changing the stance. But notice the wrist still doesn't move. The movement is coming from the elbow. Right? I'm shifting my weight of the elbow to move these lines because what you want this kind of energy in your penmanship. Right? Drawing with wrists, what happens is a lot of the energy sort of gets lost. Right? So this is sort of that. But we could go straight back and draw some very mechanical shapes again using the elbow again. And let's draw some ellipses. Ellipses being one of the hardest shapes to draw. And just like drawing straight lines like this, by moving my elbow, I could draw ellipses like so. Right? And notice the wrist doesn't move. The wrist stays in exactly the same location. Even for little tiny shapes like this, the wrist stays still. They could get big, huge, very big ellipses. See? And it's a very difficult shape to draw, but with enough practice, you could do it. And this kind of skill carries over directly to the Wacom tablet. Right, so like this, draw like that. Right, and then go back and practice straight lines. And this is how I spent my career for the first, from 97 or so all the way to about 2003, drawing on paper just like this. You know. And another thing is, another quick tip that we use, you notice all the pens we have here, all these microns and the high-tech C's and these big giant markers and they're all permanent. All these pens are permanent. They're not pencils. This is something that I was taught when I was in school, because when you have a pencil, you tend to have an eraser that goes with it. And when you have an eraser, you could then get rid of mistakes. For example, I don't draw this well, I could get rid of it. But that means you just do the same thing twice, right? So by not having an eraser, we just draw everything once, and that's it. And you draw everything once, and you draw it precise. And this is more of a production type of thinking versus artwork related thinking. So let's go back and just sketch one more thing here. Let's draw, go back to gestural. So go from here, this, to now holding the pen like that, using the pinky as a balance tool, and your penmanship is very loose, but the freedom is still being held on. All right, so let's draw something just very, very organic. You see the flow, very nice. All right. And notice the distance I sit from the piece of paper, if you can see that, is very, very far. Right? Your eye is about a foot away from the paper. Right? You don't want to be up close like this, because you want to be able to see your silhouette. You want to see the design. Draw big. Don't need to be very, very small on the page, and build that confidence up. So right now I'm just babbling some random shapes. Let's turn that into a engine or something. Right? And this is it. This is all the equipment I use. It's very simple. The marker stuff maybe I'll go over in another video. Right now I just want to focus just on purely the pen and the paper. Right? But surprisingly, the paper that I use the most to draw is actually just plain copy paper versus these kind of sketchbooks and these kind of things. But while we're here, show you guys a little bit of sketchbook stuff. So you can see this one's completely filled up, just a few pages left. This is all Star Wars stuff here. Some of these have a ton of notes on them. You can see the Star Destroyers in here, and some of the Grievous stuff are showing through here. Phone numbers, robots, notes for all the things we have to do on the project. Right? And these are the same kind of thing. Even though they're very small, the way I drew these is still with the elbow. Right? Horizon line. Right? I did a lot of environments on this film, so it's all environment drawings. And then just start drawing like this, moving your elbow around to get the designs. Alright, cool. So after this, let's talk a little bit about the the digital equipment soon, and I'm going to actually introduce somebody else to show you guys what our students here use. All right. Okay, and we are back, and right now I'm going to introduce you to Xingyi, who works here at the FZD school, and she handles all our IT as well as the equipment that we provide for our students. And what you see here is actually, that's it. This is the main equipment that all our students use, and it's very mobile. It's a laptop and those kind of things that allows the students to work here in the school as well as take it home. And so I'm going to hand over the mic to her now, and she'll go over the exact specs of this stuff you see in front of me. Okay.
Hi, this is Ying over here. So as Feng mentioned before, we actually provide students with all the equipment. Okay, as you can see over here, we have the 17-inch laptop, which is brand new over here. We have the Intuos 4 tablet and Photoshop and Corel Painter. So as for the laptop, it's 17-inch and it is Intel quad-core with 1.73 gigahertz and currently now on i7. You're actually with 4 gig RAM and 500 gig hard drives, and then it consists of the NVIDIA GeForce GT330M graphics card also. Okay, basically these are all the equipments that you actually need during the school term. So if you have any questions, just feel free to drop us a comment in YouTube, or you can always contact us directly through the phone or through email. So that should be all. That's it. So I'll see you soon.